Hello, everybody. I am Sandra Lee, and this is my guest expert interview today. I have holistic nutritionist Raina Dawn Lutz, and I love the name she has that she puts on her Facebook and business stuff. Eat the counterculture. I always love that so much. Um, Raina and I have actually known each other for quite a long time. She is, out of all the guest experts, the one who is most local to me. So one of the others was in British Columbia, and Raina is actually here where I live, Penticton, Okanagan Valley, and stuff like that. I met Raina at Get Bent Yoga because she's also a yoga teacher. Not sure if you're doing any yoga now, but that's how I met her. And then she has branched off into food and nutrition, which I love. For those of you who follow me, know I talk about food a lot. So, um, Raina is wonderful with the information that she shares, the um, perspectives that she shares, this whole, counter culture. How can we get out of the conventional mind frame and do what we can to be healthy and happy? So, today, the topic we're going to at least start off with is eating for clear thinking. So, Raina, welcome. What do you have to share with us about how to eat
Well,
for clear thinking?
thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and it's always nice to that we're both local to the area, and I know that you do such amazing work with your clients and your practice, and I know that getting to that root, sort of underneath what we're seeing is the issue. Getting to that root underneath is where people actually find healing. So I once in a while will teach a yoga class, but while it's not my main focus anymore, I do recognize that all of the wellness spectrum is all connected, right? So when I'm teaching yoga, I'm talking about nervous system and digestion. And when I'm talking to clients about digestion, I'm like, by the way, do you do yoga? So it's always intertwined, right? And so, I think people are so aware now of how the food that we're eating affects how we feel and affects how our brain functions and affects our stress levels, and of course it affects every area of our life. When I'm working with clients, having to look at some of the potential blocks or boundaries around accessing healthy food is an issue as well. And so, but the thing that I find most important for people to understand is that it's never like the barrier that we think is never the actual issue. There's always something underneath. So if we think we don't have time for healthy eating, it's just that we're not prioritizing it, or we need to delegate, or we need to ask for help. If we think that we don't have the money for it, where are we spending money elsewhere that we don't necessarily need? We can cut that and shift that budget into healthier choices. So, one of the most important things that is needed in our diets for a healthy brain, healthy gut, is healthy fats. And in the 80s, fats were very vilified. And when they got vilified, everyone decided that fats were bad. And of course, it's funny that I'm talking about this because I wasn't even born yet, but I still have clients that have that mindset of, I can't eat fats, they're bad for me. Or, they're so trained that they don't like the feeling of fats on their lips, right? They're like, no, 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 that's bad for me. And so we have all of these, mental ideas and things stuck in there from really long time ago, telling us that these things are not good for us right now. And what people need to understand is that that was just a trend, and it wasn't the truth. And if you go back in time and look at ancestors, more closer to ancestral diets, of course they had fats in their diet because they ate what nature had provided for them. And so, both you and I have that experience of going vegetarian and sort of feeling it out, and then feeling, something's missing here, and then wandering back. And that could have been part of it, was not feeling like we had enough fats. And there's a million different reasons someone might come back to meat eating after going there. And there's a million reasons people will go to vegan or vegetarian from being a meat eater. So we're always evolving and shifting our diet. But fats are something that if people are scared of, I'm always like, we've got to find a way to switch that perspective so that you can start getting them in your diet and feeling the benefits of having that support for your brain. Because when we're having, like the stress levels that we have today in our world today, and when we're having foggy brain due to stress, the least we can do to support that is add in some really healthy fats. And we can do that through healthy oils, or we can just do that with foods. Um, there's two other, other than fats, there's two other big things that I'm talking a lot with people if we're keeping on the topic of having a clear mind. And so, other than fats, balancing our blood sugar is really important. And this is not something that is really talked about. Um, Having balanced blood sugars is so important if folks are trying to have a healthier weight, if they're trying to have a steadier mood. So, but we weren't taught these things, right? So we don't necessarily know them. And so increasing the amount of fat that we have in our diet is really helpful for balancing our blood sugar. Removing sugar is really helpful for balancing the blood sugar. And that's really hard for people, especially because we use sugar as a coping mechanism for our stress. We use sugar if we're emotional eating. But what happens is we spike and crash our blood sugar, does this all day, and it is so hard on our liver, and it doesn't know what to do with that excess sugar. So it stores it as fat. And so when we can find a way to move away from that sugar addiction, have healthier sugars in our diet, have healthier fats in our diet, and eat more regularly, we will notice the effects of having that balanced blood sugar. We won't have these spiky and crashy moods and tiredness levels all day. We'll just feel better. We'll just feel better. And that's what everyone wants, right? Like we might think we want to lose that last 10 pounds, but it's really just about, I want to feel better. I want to have energy throughout the day. I want to be able to keep up with my kids. That's what I hear a lot. I don't have kids, but a lot of my clients will say that. I just want to be able to keep up with my kids or the grandkids, right? And so these are the kinds of goals that we have underneath our what we think the need might be. So I'm always trying to find out what that need is underneath so that we can try to match that, because that's how we can actually find success, right? Rather than just thinking about, this as a number. So balancing our blood sugar is really important, and it's really easy to do if we can cut out refined sugar. So I don't mean cut out all sugar. I love fruit. I think everyone should be eating a ton more fruit, but cutting out the ice creams, the candy bars, the $8 fancy drinks, and the candy. And we will find that not only are we saving money by cutting those things out, that we will notice a change in our blood sugars. And so eating more regularly, having more little snacks, it works for a lot of people, is having more regular, smaller meals rather than thinking I have to have these 3 square meals a day. And again, that's just another, training that's been put into us that it's not really a real thing. We've decided that we need to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but for some humans that actually doesn't work. It doesn't feel good, and they prefer to fast for the morning. I remember you talking about your experience with fasting quite a while ago. I'm not sure if you're still doing it, but a lot of people love that. They don't eat first thing in the morning, and they won't have something until later, and it'll be small, and then they'll have those little smaller meals, healthy and nourishing, every couple hours throughout the day. So it doesn't have to look a certain way. And that's something that I love telling people too, is like you can do whatever you want. You don't have to have a breakfast that looks like XYZ. You can have salad for breakfast. You can have a chickpea brownie for breakfast. You could, right? You can do whatever you want. It doesn't have to be like, well, my breakfast needs to look like this. It's like, no, we can think outside that box. So, what I would do for folks who are just coming to work and sort of figuring out work for their nutrition. I mean, trying to figure out, how do I feel better, and how do I make these changes, and what's my goal, and what's the biggest challenge that I have right now. So that's always my focus, is like, what is your biggest thing right now? Because we can't tackle 10 different things. We have to be really focused and clear in what we're trying to do, and we have to use mindfulness in that. So I loved watching Amy's talk, and I know that she talked about a lot of similar work that I do, which is, how you feel, right? And tracking. So we both have that same practice of getting our clients to do a tracking journal, and it's so helpful because the practice of it, other than clients saying, "I don't want to do that," that's part of the practice, and the hurdle is getting them to do the practice, right? And so once they get over that and can do it, it gives them the power, because then I'm teaching them how they can look at how they're feeling and how certain foods are making them feel, right? So it's not about me reading the journal. Like Amy said, I don't really care what you're eating. I'm just trying to help you feel good, right? And so then when the client can see, okay, like this food and I feel that way, and this food and I can feel that way, then all of a sudden when you notice these things, then you're coming from a place of power in your diet, where you can say, okay, now I understand. Here are these things that make me feel this way. Do I prefer to feel that way? No, it's not really helped me reach my goals. So then from that place, that's when we can start practicing willpower in its original form. So willpower has kind of been ruined in the last little while thanks to diet culture. And willpower is about, in the moment, deciding, how do I choose to feel based on my past experiences with this food. So I always use cheese as the example. Say you're at a party and there's a cheese platter, and you're like, yes, I love cheese. You gobble a bunch of cheese down, and an hour later you're really bloated, and the next day you really don't feel good. All right, cheese not really working for my body right now. So another week goes by, you go to another party, there's another cheese platter. So then you're faced with the option of using willpower. Okay, last time I had the cheese, didn't feel very good. Do I want to make that choice again? Or do I want to take this other path where I don't, and see if I can not feel that way? Maybe there's going to be other food at the party, not just cheese. No one's going to have a cheese party, although that sounds really fun. Or maybe you say, well, maybe I'll just have one piece of cheese and I'll eat it really mindfully and I'll really enjoy it. See how that feels, because that could work too. So that scenario is practicing willpower in the form that it was meant to be in, which is mindfulness and consciousness in that moment of, what choice do I want to make? And when we start coming from that place and having some more sense of personal power with our diet, and people don't really understand what that means, but all that means is you're free to make your choices. So when you start coming from a place in food with that mindfulness of, how do I want to feel, you're removing all of the, I don't want to swear, Sandra, all of the drama. Sometimes I swear when I get passionate. All of the drama that comes with dieting and diet culture, which is pressure and rules and restrictions and frustration and shame and then guilt, and we have that vicious cycle then, right? Because when we're feeling all those things, well, what are we going to do to comfort ourselves? We're probably going to go binge on some ice cream and start the whole cycle all over again.
And
So
I think that the fact that there is so much emotion tied up in food is what the food companies market to.
right,
They count on the fact that this is an area where people have all of this emotion and history and struggle and stress.
yeah,
And so they get people to buy things because of that.
yeah, it's actually very sad.
Yeah.
And it's I tried, like, I'm always trying to see both sides. So, it's like, on one hand, it's incredible the amount of food that we have accessible to us, right? It's amazing. It's too much. On the other hand, we can be overeating very regularly, but undernourished, because the food is not actually providing us with what our body needs, right? And so absolutely, and they prey on that, and they know how to prey on that with colors and with words, and you can even go into organic health shops and see it there too. There's all sorts of weird stuff that's marketed to um, counterculture people, and you're just like, huh? Like I have an Instagram account at Eat the Counterculture, and I post stuff like that regularly. It's like, it's not to shame the corporations, because they're just trying to make money, but it's to teach people, like, hey, like, you don't need a company to sell you watermelon jerky. you can just like make your own dried watermelon. And also jerky is a word about meat. It has nothing to do with watermelon, right? So I'll post things like that to tell people like, hey, like we just need to be looking with a different eye when we're shopping, right? And when you look with that eye, you can see it, and you can see it everywhere, and it's so clear. And that what that does though is, and I'm sure you have this experience when you're grocery shopping, because you have that eye, you don't have to waste time. You don't have to read the label. You don't have to do guesswork. You don't have to do any math on the ingredients. It's just like, oh, that's a no. Because I don't, it's a no. And so you get to just move on and go to what you do know that you want to buy, which is the whole foods in the grocery store. So I think that, and I think that's a really good point too, Sandra, is that, um, you know, we need to be, and this is part of my movement, I guess, is that we do need to be taking more responsibility for ourselves instead of just giving our power away to these corporations who are trying to feed people with this food that is really, really not good. And intuitively, they know that, right? Like we know that something with this neon yellow and pink and orange splattered, you know, label is like intuitively we know like this isn't natural, this isn't good, this isn't healthy, this isn't healing. Because when we don't have the eye, food from nature is boring. But if you have the eye, food from nature is very simple and beautiful. You just have to see it that way. It's not that it isn't that way, it's that you're not seeing it that way, right? And so a lot of my work that I do with clients, I call it cleansing the doors of perception, because I love The Doors and Jim Morrison, but also because we have all these crazy ideas that have been put into us from marketing and corporations and you know the diet industry and our friends and our family, and there's all of this stuff that's not ours. It's not ours. And when we start pulling them out and looking at them and going, well, I don't know where I got that idea from, then we can get rid of it. And then once we have cleared a lot of those, food is so easy because we just can breeze through the grocery store, the farmer's market. We pick up what we want. We know what feels good for our body. It's breezy and it's simple. And it, you know, I'm totally not a chef. My food is like, it doesn't look good. But I know Amy is a chef. She talked about making your food look beautiful. If that's important to people, it's so easy to make your really simple, basic food super beautiful and more appealing to your eyes, right? For me, I'm like, I'll have some dried mango and I'm happy for an hour. Like that's good enough, right? But I totally
So
understand.
how do you work with someone who has no clue how to switch from eating packages to eating whole food?
It's really it's challenging, but people are ready to do the work. Then they just need someone to help them facilitate that. So getting them to do the journal is a really important first step so that they can get clear on what foods are working good for them. And like I said earlier, and same with Amy, it's like I don't care what you're eating. This is for you. This is your process. So however people and go and start it today. Whoever's watching, go and start tracking your own food. You can get really clear only by tracking food and feelings. Don't write calories or anything like that. Just what you ate and how you felt. And then you get really clear on, you know, what symptoms did I have and how was my mood and how was my sleep and how was everything after, how was my body's experience after eating that way. And so after doing that for a week or so, it's more clear. So then when they come back to me, we can sort of break it down. Okay, maybe this isn't really working. Let's try going off this for a little while. And how can we fill in those gaps? So if it's something that they're eating really often, like let's say it's bread, we can say, oh, okay, we're having some symptoms every time we have gluten. So let's try to go off gluten for a little bit and see how that feels. And then we can either find a replacement for that, or if it's not something that is, you know, super common, then it's like, let's just cut it out and see. Most people do prefer to find a replacement, but it's just experimenting, right? And everyone's different. So if they're a person who loves recipes, it's like, great, we're going to look on Google. We're going to, you know, try buying a new food at the grocery store, and then we're going to look at Google for recipes. I always find it funny when people ask me for recipes because I'm like, we have Google. Don't ask me. Like, I'm not a chef. I don't know. But if you Google anything, you will find hundreds of thousands of beautiful recipes for these foods. And that will make them, super, super, super delicious. So we'll go through that process of making these switches. And then as we do that, and they won't need the journal anymore, but as we do that, they'll realize, oh, things are starting to change. I when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel as groggy, or I don't feel like I need that 3 p.m. nap anymore, or my bowels have been really good lately, right? And so there's always one thing that gives us an indication, okay, the body's getting happier now. And I prefer to use that term over you're doing good, because if I tell people they're doing good, then if they decide to have a weekend where they have family over for pizza and beer, then they'll come back to me on Monday and say, I was a bad girl. No, you had fun, right? We can't assign our self-worth with the food that we're eating. Those are different things. So it's not about being bad or good, it's how you're feeling. So body's happy, we're starting to feel better. We have, more greens in our diet, and we have more fruit in our diet, and we're not driving through for $8 drinks every day. So these are huge steps, and they'll start to notice that they're feeling better. And it really just has to be, what I've seen anyway, having someone to take you through that, facilitate that process, and say, hey, are you noticing this, right? Like, let's talk about this. Because absolutely you can do this on your own, but most people give up and they think, oh, I can't do it. I don't have the willpower, I don't really care. Or, well, my symptoms aren't that bad. I've lived this long, I'm okay. But the reality is, just having someone in your court who wants to back you and coach you through this process is so helpful, because when you have that support and someone who really cares, it makes it easier to do, and it makes it accessible to do. And then that coach will give you the power to be able to do it for yourself, so that you can fly the nest. That's what I tell my clients. Are you ready to fly the nest? Because I don't want you to be my client forever, right? I want you to learn what your body needs, and then you go on, and you just are able to keep doing it and keep coming back after you've fallen off the wagon, because it's coming from that place of power where it feels good, not the place of guilt where, oh, I guess I better get back to the diet, right? So one of the things that people will say a lot is like, diet starts Monday. And so when I'm talking to people about working with me, that's one of the things I'll say is like, have you ever said that? Or like, how many times do you think you've said that? Because a lot of people have spent decades saying that every week. And we don't have to live our lives that way. We can, like your group is called Thrive. We can thrive. We can have a life where food feels good, it's simple, it's healing, and we know our body well enough that we know, ooh, my skin's dry. I think I better have some fish this weekend. Or, oh, my digestion's been a little off. I think I'm gonna cut down on those ice creams with friends, or whatever it is. And then we get to learn, what our body's needs are. We get to learn what it's asking for, and it's just easy. And that's such a powerful thing. It's so beautiful when people are able to have that sense of power, that sense of ease, and that it's not a stressful thing, and that it's not a diet, because that's not sustainable, and everyone knows it. Everyone's dog and everyone's uncle knows that diets don't work. You know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Amy has a comment. Making your
Oh,
real food look pretty can replace the attraction to the bright boxes if you find yourself reaching for the most attractive packaging. Love
I
your work,
love
Raina.
it. Oh, I love it. Yeah, see, and that's perfect, and that's a great bridge for people, because I don't fall for the pretty packaging. I don't want to participate in that. But if that's what people are used to buying, then making your food look beautiful, yeah, it would shift it. That makes total sense to me. I love that.
I think something that is a big first step is dealing with the overwhelm. And I think there's probably a lot of guilt
Yeah.
for people around food. And when people start stirring the water up and thinking about changing things, they get confronted,
Yes.
and that can have people give up. And
Totally.
so it's just like to come to a place of, you know what? Just love yourself where you are, what your journey's been, and
Mhm.
celebrate even tiny successes. every
Absolutely.
little success. And I say, and don't beat yourself up about anything.
Absolutely. And I think that's, part of our mainstream culture is that pressure to keep performing so hard, right? And do the grind and hustle and all of that crap. And so, but when we apply that to food, I mean, that's not how our body works. Our body doesn't want to hustle and grind. It needs to rest. It needs to digest. It needs to be relaxed. And so that culture of pressure, when we apply it to food, it doesn't fit. And telling people, and this is so cliche, people hear it and just goes one ear and out the other, but one step at a time. And it's cliche for a reason. It has to be that way. You can't go from eating this way to a raw vegan. It just doesn't work that way. And maybe raw vegan doesn't work for you. So we have to go slow, and have these little successes and fails, and on the wagon and off the wagon, and feel it all out and try different things. And like, a lot of people will ask me, well, what diet do you recommend? Like, don't you follow like vegan or vegetarian or whatever? And I'm like, no, I'm a free agent. I believe that our diet should evolve like hundreds of times throughout our lifetime, and it has to, right? Like it has to evolve from the time you're a child to a teenager, because you're growing so much, and then it has to evolve again depending on how you're treating your body in your early 20s. I did not treat mine good. So then, and then if people decide to have children, you have to eat a different way. And all throughout the stages of your life, our diet has to shift for what we're dealing with. So we have to be able to honor that. And we can't just say, oh, I'm going to stick to this one thing, because eventually the pendulum will swing the other way, and something that healed us will be the adding to our symptoms or illness. So that's, our body always is going to be in that swinging state. And I've never felt right about labeling diets, or putting, and that's just me too. It's like, don't put me in a box. And so I will tell people that too. It's like, you don't need to be boxed. Like, test the waters. Try eating vegan. Try eating macrobiotic, right? Like, try these things on, but you don't have to get stuck in it. And because what happens when you get stuck in it is, if it's not working anymore, then you have guilt. So try it on, but don't feel like, oh, I need to do this exact way. No, you don't. There's no rules. Do whatever you want. It's your body that's in charge, right? It's your body's needs, and feeling out what those are, and getting in tune with them, and then honoring them, because it's, at the end of the day, it's about honoring our body. And that's the most important thing. That's what's going to get us the results that we want, right? um, and another word about making small steps is, so many people, and I just did a post about this in my group, was like, back to basics, right? A lot of us aren't doing just the very, very basics. And I'm sure you talk about this in your group, Sandra, is like, a lot of people aren't drinking enough water. A lot of people aren't chewing their food. A lot of people aren't eating greens every day. So these are really basic things, but they're not basic for everyone. And so starting with those, it's like, for most people, they wouldn't think that drinking more water is that big of a deal. But if you're working with a client and they're getting help from you, and you know that they need to be adding that into their diet to see some results in what they're dealing with, then absolutely we need to celebrate something as small as, you've upped your water intake, or you're remembering your water bottle every day. Like, let's do a happy dance for that, please. That's amazing, right? Because we just get caught in our habits and our routines, and we struggle with making change. So that's why my biggest focus in helping clients make change is making it about mindfulness instead, because that's what's going to get us to the root, and be able to make those changes about what feels good for me. If it feels good, do it, right? Rather than, oh, there's this pressure to do this thing, because that doesn't feel good. That doesn't have good energy to it. And we're not going to stick with something that doesn't have good energy to it, right? We're going to eventually give up on it. So it has to be about feeling good at the core. And that's my thoughts on mindfulness and change. Do you have any
Great.
questions,
Thank you.
Sandra?
No, So, how will people get in touch with you? Do you have something in particular you want to offer them?
Hmm. Well, my Facebook group is where I hang out a lot. I love doing videos in there. And so my Facebook group, or my group is called Eat the Counterculture. And I have a program starting on September 7th, actually, called Changemakers. And Changemakers is my program for women who are wanting to get out of the diet mindset, tired of saying I'll start Monday, and tired of not taking action on the way that they would prefer to be eating. So I take women on and men. I take humans through a 12-week journey with me, and they get monthly coaching, they get energy medicine sessions, so they do have spiritual support as well. And then there's a monthly one-to-one coaching call with me where we dive into the homework that they'll receive through email. So it's not a majorly intensive program, but it does obviously need people to be committed to it. And I guarantee that if the work is done, that they will exit the program feeling really clear about food, having it feel really simple, and will never diet ever again.
So, how would people contact you with interest about that?
Well, my website, which we could comment on, I guess, at the bottom of it, is lutznutrition.ca. That it's Lutz. But I think my Facebook group would be the best place to find more information on that, and that's where I have a lot of education, a lot of videos, and it's just a nice community. It's a community of folks from across the states and Canada who are invested in self growth, evolving themselves, community, supporting each other, healthy living, holistic living, as well as the food movement, which is kind of what Eat the Counterculture is about. Really, is getting away from the mainstream grocery stores, and how do we secure food for ourselves, in our own communities, farmers markets, growing for ourselves. So supporting that local food movement as well, and the community in there has been really amazing. It's hard on social media right now to find places that are safe and positive, and I'm very, very grateful that my group has just been incredible, everyone in there. So it's a really cool place to hang out. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Sandra.
Oh, you are so welcome. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your expertise, and I learned some things. And so, yeah, and food is such a wonderful part of life,
Yes.
such a rich part of life experience. And so to have it be something that people actually enjoy and feel like they're helping themselves is a really powerful thing. So,
I agree. I agree. I've ever since I studied nutrition, I've seen, food can be like a platform for change for people. They can use food as a way to learn how to heal themselves in all areas of life. And so it's a really great, metaphor for changing other things in your life. But it also just makes you feel good physically. So there's no downside to eating healthier diet.
yay!
I'm a nutritionist, of course I'm going to say that.
Well, so thank you, Amy, for being on with us, and thank you, Raina. It's been wonderful. So, tomorrow I have my Thursday tips for thriving session, and I'm going to talk about how I choose the foods that I eat. So, thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.